everybody. I'm Evie Roberts, and this is my podcast, Talking in the Dark. Welcome. The aim of this podcast is to raise awareness about blindness, visual impairment, and disability in general, in a happy and light-hearted way. For those of you that don't know, I am blind. I was born with a condition called bilateral anophthalmia. Try spelling that one. It basically means that when I was born, my eyes didn't develop properly, so I wear prosthetics instead. The goal of this podcast is to remove some of the stigma and stereotypes around disabilities, whilst also having fun at the same time. Each week, I will be interviewing people from all walks of life, including some with hidden or physical disabilities like mine, and getting to know a little bit more about them and the lives they lead. This week, I am very excited to tell you that I will be talking to best-selling record producer and chair of the disability charity Scope, the incredibly cool Sir Robin Millar. My name is Evie Roberts, and this is my podcast, Talking in the Dark. Welcome. Hey Robin, how are you?
I'm very well, Evie, thank you. Delighted to be here.
Oh my God, it's such a pleasure to have you on the podcast. How's your day going so far?
So far, so good. I've seen an osteopath. I've skipped lunch, which is a very good thing for me to do a couple of times a week. I've kicked over a guitar, but didn't damage it. And I've listened to 3 new tracks from an artist that we manage, and I love them all.
Oh, brilliant. So to begin with then, I believe that you have retinitis pigmentosa, which means that you lost your sight gradually over time. And I was wondering, how did you sort of cope with your sight loss journey?
So ignorant at first, of course, until you go to school, you don't really think about, although you know there are differences, you accept them, and you've really only got family who can sort of help you negotiate the landscape, and you sort of take it for granted. And then at school, you notice 2 things, and that, in my case, it sort of developed my personality at the time. Firstly, I got picked on a lot and bullied a lot and called a lot of names, and I became quite feisty and quite physically, quite aggressive is not the right word, angry, I think. And that took me through. The schools in those days didn't really have any understanding of how best to treat me. So they did let me move further and further towards the front of the class to see the blackboard. The bullying persisted. My dad made me join a boxing club when I was 9. So I was pretty tough. By the time I was 14 or 15, I was a pretty tough little customer. And I got all this bodybuilding equipment and stuff. So I built myself up. I'd learned to fight. And then, funnily enough, when I was about 14, I discovered the guitar. I'd learnt music in the standard school way, and I'd learnt to play the piano, although even by then I found sight reading, quite difficult. Not impossible, but quite difficult. But my dad bought me a guitar, and I immediately felt this was much more attached to me. And then my sister, who was older than me, liked American blues music, and I'd not been exposed to blues music at all, but it was men and women who had led very difficult lives and were singing about their pain, and they were playing their guitars in a kind of way of squeezing that pain and emotion. And I identified very, very, very strongly with that. And I practiced and did a couple of little gigs at school. And then I found that being cool was working much better than fighting. It was certainly working much better with girls, which was very important to me. And even with boys, and I became definitely the best guitar player in the school. And I started doing gigs outside of school, in, local clubs. And that, of course, made me even cooler. So I'd say that's the short answer. I started unaware of it. Then at school, the bullying, the lack of support from the teachers made me very, very angry, quite aggressive, but very tough. And then once I discovered music, not only was it a way of identifying my pain from listening to how other people used songs to express their emotions, and I started writing songs. And I still think that when people write songs as singer-songwriters, the the first thing they're trying to do is they're trying to pour a kind of soothing balm on their own pain. And it's funny when artists write songs that are a lot about pain and loss and grief, you think, oh God, they must be a very depressed person. But actually, the process of sharing that and singing it to yourself in songwriting is actually cathartic. It's actually a boon. So I started writing songs, and just the last part of my answer, Evie, is that I've still got the lyrics to a lot of the songs I wrote in my teenage years, and I read them back, and every single one of them has got some kind of play on words like blind, sight, dark, loss, see in them. And I read them back and I go, gosh, wow, I was upset by all this, wasn't I? Boy, was I upset. I remember how upset I was, but I haven't carried it with me, Evie. It's not, I don't feel like that now. I read those words and I think, I remember that little boy. I remember that teenage boy. I remember that he was very upset and uptight, but its use to me is now that I work with scope, and of course I'm trying to help protect, encourage, and deliver a good life experience for disabled. I find it particularly useful going back over those lyrics because it does remind me of what the beginning of that journey is like.
Yeah, I mean, I can totally imagine. Now, you are an incredibly talented record producer, and you mentioned to me earlier that you've got lots and lots of gold and platinum records on your wall behind you, which just shows how talented you are. But what elements would you say make a good song?
Okay, there's two things. There's a good song and there's a great delivery for a good song. A good song expresses an emotion, sadness, happiness, joy, togetherness, loss, pain, in a way that lots of people who you don't know and who weren't there and who didn't have that experience can nonetheless identify with. So there's a universality, there's a way of expressing a song. I'm talking about lyrics now. Melodies, they need to be easy to remember. That's all I'd say about melodies. They need to be easy to remember. But lyrics need to have a universal appeal. Then you get to the second part, which is the singer, the person giving the performance. And that, to me, what I work on with them is I've got to believe you. I've got to believe you. I'm sitting here and you're singing. I do all my vocals with the singer in the same room, not in the traditional way of a control room, then a big pane of glass, and then the singer on the other side. I have them right next to me. And I actually sing the song with them almost. I'm making shapes. I think there's a certain comfort, by the way, the fact that they know I can't see them, because I do say to singers, if you want to deliver, sing ugly. Don't be afraid to contort your face or screw your eyes up or, wave your arms around or do anything you like. So, and the test of that, I think the true test of that is
when it's really worked is when people are walking around Tesco's doing their shopping, and from miles away over the speaker system, you get Adele singing Someone Like You, and people just stop and they go, what's that? What's that? Who's that? What's that? And they find they're crying, and they don't know why they're crying. So the singer has got to deliver the truth, the universality of that message to people that she or he have never met and don't know anything about.
Yeah, definitely. And I would imagine that that's quite difficult to do, but I think when you get it right, it works really well.
It does.
So what qualities then do you look for in a recording artist?
There's two. I should preface this by saying I made a decision when I was 18, Evie, that I would go into commercial music. So that means selling records. So it may sound a bit shallow to you, but so I judge how successful my record productions have been in how well they do in the market, how much they sell broadly. Now, put that to one side. It means that, honestly, the marketing is the most important element. And the example I would give is, you and I might agree that Little Mix, Spice Girls are not the most deeply meaningful, talented singers, but they're fantastic as a group of people marketing themselves, attaching themselves, getting people to identify with them. And as long as the songs are good enough, they will sell. Now, obviously for me as a music lover and a music maker, I want an artist whose songs touch me deeply, who's got, this is me personally, something unique about their voice, and something within whose voice I think is going to have a positive impact upon people that they don't know. It'll just be a tone of voice or a way of phrasing a voice. So the golden pot of gold at the end of the rainbow for me is when you've got an artist whose music is so good that even if they wore a bin bag and never came out of their room, it stood a chance of getting attention. But actually what you've got is an artist whose music is that good, but then who actually looks and behaves and is driven by becoming famous. When you put the two of them together, that's gold. And of course, the one commercial element that is important to me and has contributed to my success, I make sure that they are a priority with their record company. I make sure that the people who are making the decisions, controlling the money, are going to spend a lot of money marketing the artist when I've spent a lot of time and emotional energy with the artist making the record. So I won't work with artists who are on the way down in their career. I will only work with artists who are either on the way up or they're so established that nothing can knock them off.
Yeah, I totally get that. Now, you mentioned earlier that you discovered the guitar when you were about 14 or 15, but I believe you play a number of instruments. Would you say the guitar is your favorite to play, or do you have another which you particularly, enjoy playing?
I've got a guitar whose name is Patricia. All my guitars have got names, which probably says something. And I've got two pianos. Neither of them have got names.
Right, okay.
They're just brand names. I've got a synth behind me here. It's a synth. But my guitars have all got names. I play Patricia every day, so she's like an extension of my personality, and it's something to do with the fact that the strings actually move under my fingers, whereas with a piano or a sax, you press keys and the mechanism and the machinery plays. And by the way, there are pianists and saxophone players so good that I can actually identify them by the sound. Even if they're playing a piano they've never played before, it'll still sound like them. So I think that people who know me and they heard someone playing the guitar, even if it was just a guitar I'd never played before, even if I just played a few notes, I think they'd say that's Robin playing the guitar. That's his touch. That's his feeling.
Right, okay. I mean, that's so cool. That's such a cool quality to have. Now, are there any instruments that you wish you'd learnt to play?
Well, let me see. I'm an okay drummer. I'm an okay pianist. Guitar, ukulele, concertina, penny whistle. I've never wanted to play the violin or the cello. I'd like to be able to play the sax because it's the instrument that's the closest to like a human voice, because my favorite instrument is the human voice by far. And by the way, that means that I'm the most picky because when it's right, it's my favorite instrument. I actually dislike a huge number of singers because I don't like the way they use their voice. So yeah, sax. I'd love to be able to play the sax. But by the way, I can make a noise out of a saxophone and I can play a series of notes in the right order, but that's not playing the sax.
Yeah, I totally.
How about you? Do you play?
I do, yeah. I play the flute, and I have played the flute since I was 9. Basically, I was sat in an assembly in primary school one time, and they were demonstrating how to play certain instruments, and basically said, if you want to play any of these, like, take a letter and get it signed by your parents. And my support teacher who was with me, she was like, do you want to? And I was like, yeah, I want to play the flute, because as soon as I heard it, I was like, oh my gosh, like, that's so pretty. I'd love to be able to play that. So she got a letter for me. And I've always identified with music ever since I was super, super young, because I'd been blind since birth. So sound has always been a big thing for me. And so I've always loved music. And so when I asked my mom, I was like, can I play the flute? She literally went, yeah, sure. She was so chill about it. And I've played.
That's well done, Mum.
Yeah. And
of course the flute is the sideways on sax, you realise.
I don't. Well, yeah, I kind of.
The fingering's the same. The fingering's the same.
Is it? I did not know that.
Yep.
Oh, thanks. I did not know that.
Yep.
Yeah, but anyway, I've played since I was 9, and I'm currently working towards my grade 4 exam, which is in a couple of weeks. And I play in an orchestra as well. But because I've been blind since birth, my way of reading music is by Braille music, which was so difficult to learn, but I think I've got it now. But yeah, Braille music's tricky. But obviously, I was wondering, you mentioned that sight reading was tricky when you were a teenager and losing your sight. But how are you able to read and compose music now?
The journey I went on, ironically, when I first started getting work, as a professional player, I suppose, you said how difficult it was to learn Braille, but you mastered it. I became a really good sight reader for guitar. Now, just to break that down, a properly written guitar part has got left hand instructions and right hand instructions. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Your fretting hand, the one that is playing the notes, and then the one that's strumming or picking the notes, the other hand. And the thing that's unique to a guitar, I haven't got one. Well, I mean, I have got one in the room, but I'll probably kill myself getting over to it. Is you can play the same note in 3 or 4 different places. So if you're doing like an arpeggio up from quite low to quite high, there's at least 4 different ways you can play, whether you go up and then across, or up a bit, then across, then up a bit, then across, ending up in the right place. I was very, very fluent and at sight reading, and very few guitarists are. it's funny, you know, pianists are generally good sight readers. Brass and woodwind, they're generally good sight readers. But guitarists, whether it's the nature of the instrument or the fact it's quite difficult, they're not. It's not so much that they're not good sight readers. They're not good at looking at a series of notes and instinctively knowing the right way to play, whether you're playing across or whether you're playing up. So I used to get work because even as a teenager, I was working for the Ballet Rambert in London when I was a teenager, playing guitar as what they call a dep. You know, if the guitarist couldn't turn up, they needed someone who could come in, never having seen the music before, and, you know, play live in front of an audience. And then when it got worse, I used to ask the arranger or the conductor to get the score, preferably the week before or a day before, because one of the ways that one compensates if one has got any sort of disability, deficit, whatever it might be, is by application and determination. So I would get the piece of music the night before or the week before, and you know, I'd practice it over and over and over and over and over again, break it down into bits, look at it, you know, with good lighting and a microscope until I got it right. And then actually, I think I was freed up, Evie. I was freed up by the fact that my eyesight reached the point where I could not sight read anymore. And I was still working, doing quite a lot of live touring. And I just decided that I was really much more interested in the technical craft of recording than, you know, going out night after night after night and playing. So actually, as my eyesight got worse, I think it opened a door for me. I think it created a real opportunity for me, because I've never been at a disadvantage in a recording studio environment, never. And I've experienced a lot of barriers and a lot of prejudice from a lot of people trying to raise money, trying to get jobs. I've never experienced that from other musicians, ever. So I think I was very fortunate that I chose you know, a medium, a way of life where my peer group, I've never ever experienced any negativity or prejudice at all from. And you know, going in for jobs, I mean, when I used to go in to try to get regular jobs, and I used to try, I think things are better now, or try to raise money, I could tell people were looking at me and going, but he's blind. He can't possibly do the job. I mean, we can't lend him money. I mean, I've never experienced any, in fact, to the point where when I first got my agent and he said, well, obviously I'm going to try and get you the best jobs I can. And I'd say, get me in the room with them for 15 minutes and I'll get the job. If I sit and meet them face to face and talk to them. And I never once felt, sensed, heard afterwards anyone doubting that I could do a good job.
Wow, I mean, that's amazing. I was wondering, obviously you've said that you can't sight read anymore, but you used to be very good at it. But
yeah.
Can you like play by ear at all? Like,
yes, very well, very well.
Yeah.
Very, very well. Yeah.
Yeah, because I can do that, because I didn't learn Braille music until, gosh, 3 or 4 years into when I was playing flute, and I actually did my whole grade 1 just learning by ear. And so I can do it well, but I think since I've learnt Braille music, I depend on that a little bit more, and I can't play by ear as well. Do you think?
I think you'll find that's very common, that good sight readers, good orchestra players, more of them have trouble playing by ear than don't. Probably little to do with whether you can see or not. It's just to do with getting used to playing. I've also got relative pitch, which is very useful. And that, by the way, relative pitch is acquired. I mean, people talk about this thing called perfect pitch. I'm not even sure I know what that is. But, you know, if you play me something, I can tell you what key it's in. Or if you play me a note, you know. So I've got relative pitch. And that's just from getting used to hearing music so often and needing to identify what key it's in.
Yeah, no, I get that. I've got pretty good relative pitch as well. I didn't realise until about 3 months ago. And because I have a Braille music teacher over in the UK, and she's blind as well, and she's brilliant. And I have like lessons with her weekly over like WhatsApp voice call. And it was a couple of months ago, and she like played something, and she was like, "What note is that?" And I was like, "Oh, it's, I don't know, G." And she was like, "So then she played me something else," and I was like, "C." And she was like, "You do realize you've got relative pitch, right?" And I was like, "Not until now, but okay, yeah, cool."
And it's good to practice it every now and then, by the way.
Yeah, I would imagine. I don't really practice it, but I probably should.
Yeah, just every now and then, but say, okay, I'm going to be near my flute and I'm going to sing an F, and then I'm going to see if when I play it, it is an F, you know.
Yeah.
That way round, rather than hearing the note first and then saying it's an F. See if you can get it into your head.
Yeah, I totally get that. Thank you. I will try that because I don't actually practice it, and I'm slowly realizing I 100% should be.
It's a really good asset. It's a good asset to have.
Yes, definitely.
The only negative thing about it is that I can't use the transpose feature on my electronic keyboard. I have to play it in the right key because you know, and I know loads of professional musicians that if they're playing something in E on a keyboard, and then someone suddenly says, "Actually, should we just take it down to C?" You know, and they just transpose the keyboard, you know, and then they play it in C. I can't do that. Because if I'm hitting a C on the piano and what's coming out of the speaker is an E, it totally messes with my head.
Yeah, I get that.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally messes with my head.
Yeah. I don't think I'd be able to do that actually. I've never had an experience where that's something I've had to do. But
Well,
I'd be the same as you. I don't think I could do it.
I can't work it. I mean, it totally messes with your head, by the way. You go, no, this isn't right.
Yeah.
It'd be like if I stuck another 4-inch tube on the end of your flute so that you were doing the same things, but the notes would all be coming out a bit lower. You'd feel very uncomfortable very quickly, and you'd start making mistakes. Because in your head, you'd suddenly hear a B, and then you'd think that what follows that, you know, has to be a B flat, and your fingers would start moving in that direction.
Yeah, I totally get that. But I mean, like, because I also take GCSE music, and one of the elements of that is composition. And I don't know about you, but that for me is so difficult. Being able to sit there and think of a melody, or think, you know, create different parts for different instruments. That is so difficult, but I don't know if you've just sort of got used to that over time.
That's why I became a record producer. I've got exactly the same issue. If you put a music creation piece of software in front of me and there's nothing in there, I'm just lost. Or if you just say, you know, there's your guitar, make up a song, I'm lost. But the minute I've got something to work on, even if it's only a melody, or even if it's only a groove, I can start building it. No, and in my head, because I went to college to do music arranging, I can write the whole thing: guitar, bass, congas, strings, keys, sax, you know, vocals, harmony vocals. That all come to me, but I have to have a starting point. I can't, like you, I can't just, nothing interesting would happen if I started from scratch. But if someone says, well, I've got an idea for a tune, it sort of goes like this, I'll go, yeah, right, fine, that's enough, take it away. I'll leave it to me.
Yeah, literally, I'm the same. Like, all I need is a basic guideline and I can go from there.
Yeah,
and
there you are.
Yeah.
We are alike. We are alike.
Very. But when I started doing my composition, I was like, what instruments do I want? What key signature? What time signature? And then when I finally sorted that out, I was like, okay, but where do I go from there? I don't know.
No, I know. Well, don't beat yourself up too much. Why do you think so many amazing classical music composers over the decades, when you look through their songs, it'll say concerto based on a theme by Paganini, or Dvorak, blah blah blah, based on 11, you know, traditional folk dances or something. They do it as well all the time. They do it all the time. and it turns out to be some magnificent concerto by Haydn or Mozart or Beethoven or something, right? But you'll often find they might have even heard someone whistling or singing to themselves while cleaning the windows, and they'll go, "Ooh, I like that," and they'll run home and they'll jot it down.
Yeah, that makes sense. But yeah, we're very alike. We both just need a basic guideline to go off, and then we're cool.
100%. 100%.
Yes. Now, you mentioned briefly earlier that you are chair of the disability equality charity Scope. What would you say some of the benefits are of employing people with disabilities?
Well, let me give you the facts with which I confront business, which amazes them, but it won't amaze you. So a huge global company called Accenture did a big survey of 140 big companies, and they graded them on how inclusive they were on disability, how many disabled people they had, not just in lower positions, but in decision making, right the way up the organization. And the ones that were the best, the most inclusive, had 28% more revenue on average than the ones that were the least inclusive. So they made more money. Their companies made more money. Now, the most obvious reason for that is that, let's say the UK, there are 16 million disabled people in the UK. Okay, you've got your mum on your side and you've got Steve on your side, right? That's two. That makes 48 million. That's over half the country. So if you're trying to run a business and you don't understand, or you're not speaking to, or you've got no one in your company who can tell you what it's like and relate to this from the point of view of someone with a disability, or someone who helps, loves, works with, is a family member of, you're not going to do as well as the company that can, because you've lost half your market before you started. The other reasons are, by the way, we on average perform better in school and university exams than our able-bodied friends and companions. So, they get 2 2s, we get 2 1s, they get 2 1s, we get firsts on a like for like. We are very determined, we're very resilient, we're quite tough, we're very loyal when given support and opportunities. So I would say to an employer, determination, ability, loyalty, what's wrong with that as reasons to take someone on? And I go, are you going to start talking to me about the cost of putting in ramps or accessible software or stuff? Because that's irrelevant. That's irrelevant. That's easy, simple, irrelevant.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And I think I honestly don't really get why people wouldn't employ people with disabilities.
Evie, more than anything else, it's because people feel awkward. They feel awkward. 53% of employers, when asked, admitted to feeling awkward when talking to a person with a disability. Your friends at school are luckier than some because you are there with them. And when they leave school at 18, they will have seen your values. They'll have seen you in good moods and bad moods. They'll have seen you triumph. They'll occasionally have seen you fall over something, and the awkwardness just won't be there. I meet people in their 40s and 50s even, and they'll go, "Oh, sorry, I don't know really. It's just I've never walked with a blind person. You'll have to tell me if it's just awkwardness. It's awkwardness." And if you've got 2 candidates in front of you, and one of them, by the way, this goes towards race, gender, LGBT, as well as disability. If you've got 2 candidates and one of them looks like you, talks like you, dresses like you, behaves like you, you'll go, "Oh, that's all right. I'll be fine with her. I'll be fine with him." And if the other one you're not used to, you're awkward, then there's other stuff. There are employers who think, "Oh, it'll have a negative impact." I'll tell you an amazing story to show you how idiotic this is. This is Robbie Williams told me this story, the guy that used to be in a boy band. had a lot of success as a solo singer, and his record company, he found out, and he went bananas, by the way, when he found out that the head of the London office of his record company had vetoed a decision which had been made lower down to employ wheelchair using girl in the front office, not because it meant putting a lower desk and a lower TV monitor, but because he thought it wouldn't look cool. And Robbie Williams, I'm sure, stormed into his office and said, not only is that a very unpleasant thing to have done, but it's also a very stupid thing to have done. And it means that you don't understand people in general and artists in particular. Do you actually think there's a single artist on your label who'd walk in and go, oh God, they've got a person in a wheelchair. That's terrible. I'm going to change to another company. I said, quite the reverse. He said, quite the reverse. If you've got a really up and coming artist who's got a big social media following, who's on TV, and who's deciding between you and 3 other companies that they've been to see that week, and they walk in and there is a young wheelchair using girl sitting there and she says, hello, how are you? They're going to go, what a brilliant company. This is amazing. I love everything. This is my first impression. Where do I sign?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Yeah, I don't know why they would do that, but I totally agree with you. Yeah.
I think it's ignorance. That's all I can do at Scope, is to try to go out and about and keep talking to people about the fact that actually they're factually wrong. They're mistaken. They think it won't be good for their organization. It will be good for their organization. The facts, the statistics prove it.
Yes.
Look, you go back to when I was a kid, Evie, you wouldn't get a job if you were black, and you wouldn't get a job if you were a woman. So there's no common sense behind that, any more than there's common sense how you wouldn't get a job because you're disabled. But we're lagging behind.
Yeah.
You know, we disabled. And by the way, blind people, I don't want to depress you, by the way,
It's
but
fine.
95% of blind people are unemployed. That's a lot, isn't it?
Yes, that is a lot.
95%.
God. Oh my God.
I know. We're at the bottom of the bottom.
We really are. I did not know that. Yeah. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, that's why it's more important than ever to go your own way, you know, and to play to your strengths. You know, you'll notice I'm not an airline pilot. I'm a record producer.
Yeah.
You know, because I'm not stupid. It's just like you don't see a lot of short people trying to become basketball players because they kind of go, you know what, you know what, that's not in my sweet spot. But music is in yours and my sweet spot. And of course, we know that we will be probably better at it than most of our peers.
Yeah, probably. Okay, then. So if you had to pick, what would you say has been your proudest moment in your career?
Saying yes to being asked to become chair of Scope. Shall I explain why?
Yes, please.
Okay, because for that first 30 years of my life, I walked steadfastly away from my disability. I wanted nothing to do with disability organizations. My parents wanted me to join RP, retinitis pigment, groups. I said, no, not interested. I didn't want to be a Paralympian. I didn't want to be, I just wanted to be like everyone else. And what did I mean by everyone else? I think my 19-year-old self would have said, I want to be cool. I want to be attractive. I want to make money. I want to have nice girlfriends. I want to travel the world. So at 19, I thought that my blindness was going to make all that very difficult. And so somewhere in my head, I was trying to distance myself. I used to lie and pretend that I didn't have bad eyesight, and it used to cause all sorts of, imagine how uncomfortable, So someone stick out a cigarette packet and offer me a cigarette, and I wouldn't see it. And they'd be thinking, he's a rude so-and-so, isn't he? And my revelation came in my 30s when I started working for the United Nations and working in Africa and Malaysia and India and meeting young people who had disabilities, including blind, but who had so many other disadvantages, Evie, and who were nonetheless determined and steadfast and smiling, and laughing with an upbeat way. And I learned an awful lot from them as I went through, but I was still working for the UN, and I was raising money for the British Lung Foundation and cystic fibrosis and Artists Against Apartheid and all sorts of things. And so I suppose I'd sum it up by saying we had a big gala dinner last November, and I went up onto the stage. I had my cane next to me, and I said, even as recently as 40 years ago, I was ashamed of carrying this stick. And now I'm standing here as head of Scope. I've never been prouder of anything than to stand here with this stick talking to my people. That's the proudest moment of my life.
Yeah, and
the fact that I had made that journey and crossed the Rubicon and was now felt not just ready and able to, because obviously I'm a very significant disabled person now, and it wasn't that there was pressure on me because of that. I knew I was ready. I knew I was able to take on a big organization because I've led big organizations before, but willing, wanting my disability to be what defined me to other people who would look at me as an inspiration, if you like, but as proof positive that Scope was their people working for their people, not other people working for their people. So that's what I'm most proud of.
Yeah, and I can totally see why. I completely get what you mean about that first 30 or 40 years of your life sort of disliking the fact that you were blind, because
yes,
believe me, I have been there. When I was little, I was very difficult to get to sit down and read Braille. I feel very sorry for my teachers and my mum, who were the people trying to get me to sit down so they could teach me Braille or give me my cane to do a route with my cane. I would not do it. I was a nightmare. And the reason being, I think I subconsciously knew that reading Braille or walking with my cane, that made me different. And I did not want to accept that I was different. I just wanted to be like the other kids, because I knew, basically what I knew was, well, being blind means that no one wants to play with me at playtime. Being blind means that sometimes I'm not included in things that sighted people are included in. Being blind isn't cool. Being blind isn't fun. And I remember one time almost like crying to my mum and going, why can't I just see? Why is it me that's sort of the one stuck with this? And I totally get what you mean. It's hard to come to terms.
Very important what you've just said. It's very, very important what you've just said. I would like what you've just said in some way to be shared quite widely, Evie, because there is a quite commonly held view that if you are born blind and you don't experience the loss, and so you don't experience the grief. And what you've just said was an amazingly accurate and simple explanation as to how that really is not a very important distinction, because you certainly did experience the pain and the grief and the sense of separateness. Very, very powerful.
Thank you.
Very powerful.
Thank you. But yeah, it's hard. And luckily I've sort of come to terms with it a bit more now. But I totally agree with you. it's
hard, isn't it?
hard.
I spoke to a woman who's head of an NHS trust on Friday, and she's lost her eyesight over a 6-month period in her 50s as chief executive. I got on the phone. She asked around by any chance I could speak to Robin, and first thing I said to her, Evie, was, I said, "Ooh, Helen, this is tough. This is tough, isn't it?" And she said, "Well, yes, but I mean, obviously, you know, you've experienced the same thing. You've experienced the same thing." I said, "Yes, I did, but you're experiencing right now." And I'm just going, "Oh, this is tough."
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah.
I mean, I mean, you've had 14 years, you know, it helps a lot, doesn't it?
It does. It really does. Yeah.
I said to her, you know, just allow yourself one thing every now and then, however long it goes on. Just kick the wall every now and then and go, "I hate this, I hate this, I hate this."
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. We've all been there. We've all had those moments where you're just like, why?
Yeah.
Genuinely,
Yeah.
why?
Yeah, exactly. Why? Yeah, exactly. And that you do get, you know, you've had a lot of experience. I mean, you do change, but it's those sudden moments. Usually with me, it's when I walk into a door.
Oh my God, yes.
Smash my nose, and I'm going, "I hate this," and then you kind of go,
Yeah.
okay, and then I walk along to my neighbour. I knock on the door and I say, "Hasno, am I bleeding?" Because I'm about to go into a government meeting, and she'll also go, "Oh my God."
Yeah. The worst one is when I've done this more times than I'd like to admit, when
Go on.
you are in your house, you shut a door that you can't remember that you shut, and you walk straight into it, right? Because you're like, this is my house. I should know my way round, and I should remember if I've shut a door.
Oh.
Why have I just walked into it?
Oh, listen, forget the door. You'd think, having been blind as long as I would be in the habit of remembering where I put my phone, remembering where I put my key,
Yes!
remembering that I left that cup that I've just knocked over and smashed, wouldn't you? But
Yeah.
no, Robin, you haven't. You go around in a dream world, right? And somewhere in the middle of it, you put your phone down, and then you go, where on earth did I put my phone? And I reckon, on a scale of 1 to 10, the closed door is a 7. The half open door that you walk into the side of is a 9.
Oh my God, yeah.
That's the worst.
It hurts so much.
That's the worst.
Yeah.
And you know why? I also think it's because, for you and me, you're completely surprised. It's not like we can see and some nasty looking person's walking down the street coming towards us slowly with their fist raised, or you know what I mean? And we're gradually going, oh my God, he's going to hit me. We're just in the middle of a completely different thought or action, and then, oh my God.
Yes.
Like, oh my God.
Literally, yeah. But yeah, I lose my phone so much. The worst one, my best mate, she still never lets me live this down, and I don't think she ever will. I was on call to her, and my phone was lay next to me, like right next to me, and I went, oh my God, where's my phone? And she goes, Evie, where do you think it is? If we are on call, it is next to you or in your hand. And I was like, oh my God.
It's easy for her to say. I go hunting for my watch and realise I put it on half an hour before.
Yes.
And I do say the lady who comes in and cleans here once a week, I had this conversation. I said, you do realise, Diana, that if you put my shampoo 1 foot to the left of where I keep it, you might as well put it in Western Australia, because I will have to go around my entire flat to find it. So do you use an Amazon Echo device?
I do, yeah.
Do you know that the idea started as a blind aid?
No, I do not.
And isn't it amazing how often things that work for disabled people work for everybody?
Yeah, because most people use like an Amazon Echo now.
So I've got, so Alexa, call my phone. There you go.
Yeah.
So that's how I find Alexa, hang up. So that's how I get over that now. Alexa, hang up. Not very good at hanging up. Great. So that's how I go, Alexa, call my phone, and then I go hunting around following the sound.
Oh, I need to do that. I need to do that because
It's already in there. If you've got your phone number in somewhere on like an Amazon website somewhere, then you just say, call my phone. Alexa, call my phone.
Oh my God, thank you so much. Because usually when I'm looking for it, it's the one time that someone's not sending me a message and therefore I have nothing to go off. So I usually end up screaming down the stairs, Mom, you need to ring my phone. I've lost it again. Like, that's the way to do it.
And if there's one thing we must remember is if we put our phone on silent, remember to take it off silent again, or you're stuffed.
Literally, yeah. At that point, you're just like, right, I'm going to spend an hour looking for this now.
I know. Right, we should get back on message, I think.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I don't think there are enough compliments in the world to describe you properly, but you are such an amazing person. You're so cool, and it's been so amazing to get to chat to you.
Well, and you know, the most important thing of all that is cool. And I know that sounds like an awful thing to say, but I did think I'm going to leave you with one little moment. I told you I was a very late developer in the world of being blind, and I was a very late developer in learning to use a long cane. And I thought that me tapping along with a long cane would be a pathetic figure of fun and, you know what I mean, pity from the world. And in the end, almost by force of necessity, I got a very nice no nonsense New Zealand woman, and you probably know the process, but well, you probably wouldn't, but we'd come to it. Anyway, so she got the white cane. She taught me the side to side, blah 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 blah, and then she's walking with me, arm in arm, and then after a while she's walking 5 paces behind me, and then she's crosses the road and she's walking, across the road in parallel to me. And then at one point, she just suddenly said, right, wait 10 minutes. I'm going to the post office. You know the way. I'll see you there. And I'm going, right, okay. So I set off, and I know that you have to have momentum to keep in a straight line. Don't stop for anybody. Started tap, tap, tap. And with each step, Evie, I started to grow. I started to feel magnificent. I started to feel manly. I started to feel like Superman. I was walking down the middle of the pavement with my cane, tap, 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 out of my way. The coolest dude in town is coming. That was an amazing, extraordinary moment for me to realize that not only could I be cool, but what I thought was cool, which was driving a sports car and, admiring your own suntan, had nothing to do with it. Nothing to do with it. So I'm going to acknowledge humbly, thank you very much, Evie. I am cool. And so are you.
Oh, thank you. That's very
good
of you.
You are already magnificent.
Oh, thank you. That's really sweet. Well, thank you so much again. And thank you to my audience for listening. And I will see you all next time.